Okay, so I already recorded this freaking video, but when I tried to edit it, the audio was like all staticky and crap. So guess what? I have to re-record this entire video. Great. Oh well. I guess this experience will make me better at making freaking videos. Okay, so let's re-record this entire thing. So Richard Dawkins the other day tweeted out that if it's one thing to say that eugenics is immoral, but it's another thing to suggest that it wouldn't work in practice. And he said, of course it would work in practice. We do it for roses, cows, pigs, horses, every other animal. So of course it would work in practice. Human beings are animals. So then Stefan Molyneux makes a series of videos, and he's like, Richard Dawkins is endorsing eugenics! Nazis! And then guess what? He makes an entire series of videos that, 1, misrepresent Richard Dawkins' viewpoint, 2, misrepresent the arguments for eugenics, and 3 are just, like, bad arguments generally. So this is going to be my response video to one of the many stupid videos Stefan Molyneux put out on this topic. Okay.
Eugenics is the forced government program of sterilization and perhaps even forced breeding to improve, supposedly for the better, the genetic stock of a particular country.
So the first thing that Stefan Molyneux does is that he misrepresents eugenics, or the definition of eugenics, as the following. Quote, forced sterilization and forced breeding of humans to improve the genetic stock of a country. But that's not the actual definition of eugenics. The actual definition of eugenics is, quote, the science of improving a human population by controlled breeding to increase the occurrence of desirable, heritable characteristics. This definition does not require sterilization or even government coercion. So the idea that eugenics is a very specific government program that inherently requires coercion, false. Okay, second thing.
Now let's look at what happened, of course, under the Nazis, which is where the term eugenics really hit its political manifestation. They killed hundreds of thousands of people, sterilized hundreds of thousands of people, because, you see, the Nazis were all about making the Germans stronger and better and so on. And what happened? Well, the Nazis ended up dragging Europe into a war that killed off millions of the best and brightest and smartest Germans, as well as the best and brightest and smartest people all across Europe and halfway across the world. Not exactly making Germany better or making anybody better from that standpoint.
Stefan, the basic second argument goes like this. The Nazis did eugenics, so it must be bad. Now here's my rebuttal to this. First, just because X was done by the National Socialists does not make X bad. Hitler built roads, lowered crime, and created jobs in the years before 1939. Didn't he? Yeah, Hitler built the Autobahn roads. Are those things bad just because the so-called Nazis did them? Second, eugenics has a history that goes back before 1933. Francis Galton, a British statistician, polymath, sociologist, psychologist, and anthropologist, was the first to create the term. During the 1920s, colleges used to offer courses on eugenics. Hell, high school textbooks said that eugenics was necessary to protect American society. Scientists used to promote it because they thought it would help the poor. Encouraging people with good qualities to have children was not controversial at the time. Coercion and sterilization was. As for Hitler, Germany passed its sterilization law relatively late, when 30 US states and most other European countries already had sterilization laws. So the idea that, oh, the Nazis did it so it's bad, is crap, and it ignores the history of eugenics before 1933. One more thing. Germany starting World War II had nothing to do with eugenics. That was a separate thing. Okay, the third ridiculous argument Stefan Molyneux makes.
When the government controls who breeds, who doesn't breed, and how they breed, what happens is the government ends up wanting you dumber, wanting you more compliant, wanting you less skeptical, less challenging, less disruptive to those in authority. In other words, they want to dumb you down. And what that is, my friends, is not eugenics, but dysgenics, which is to make a population worse. Let's also look at what happened when the Germans invaded other countries, when the Russians invaded other countries. What did they generally do? Well, they did what every totalitarian regime does when it invades a new area. They shoot everyone in glasses. They shoot everyone in academia. They shoot the lawyers. They shoot the doctors. They kill off or enslave or gulag the opposition. That's how it works. In other words, they decapitate the smart, intelligent, high IQ people in the population. So when you give the government the power to control breeding, you give them the power to do a whole lot of other things, which generally has to do with massive catastrophic dysgenics of the entire population, which can take centuries to recover.
This is actually the argument that makes the most sense, but it's still bad. Actually, no. This is the argument that I honestly have the most problem with. It makes sense, but I have the most problem with it, and it's honestly the worst argument. The argument basically goes like this. Governments will want to make people dumber because of how government is incentivized. My rebuttal to this. 1. If you look at the actual history of eugenics, that was not the case. Governments traditionally did not sterilize the smartest people and the most skeptical people in order to dumb down the population. Hell, not even Hitler did that. Like, the idea that government is going to kill off or sterilize the smartest people, that's something that is so far from reality that it wasn't even done by Hitler, let alone other governments. So second. 2. Government is a tool. It's not good or bad. The only thing that matters is who is in charge of it. Blaming government on principle for things is like blaming the gun for a killing. Stefan is assuming that government programs are inherently bad. And also, he cites the example of the so-called Nazis and the Soviets killing intellectuals when they invaded Poland. But those Nazis and Soviet killings were not done because of eugenics. They were done because those intellectuals were political opponents. Okay, one more thing. There's 2 more things I want to say, and then we'll close out. But, okay. So the last thing that I want to say is, in one of his other videos on a live stream, he made a separate argument against eugenics, which is basically like this. Eugenics, according to him, would involve forcing 2 people to breed together because they're the most intelligent. But according to him, those 2 people are not going to want to raise their kid because they're not really committed or in love with each other or the kid. They're just the 2 people who are most intelligent and who are being forced to breed together by the state. Are not really interested in raising the kid. They're just interested in either not being coerced, the fact that they're being coerced by the state or that they're being paid by the state to breed. Now here's the problem with this argument. First, it's a straw man. No one in the history of eugenics has ever advocated for forced breeding of individuals based on how intelligent they are. No one, absolutely no one has ever advocated for that. Not even Hitler. Not even Hitler's followers advocated for that, let alone moderate eugenicists. Secondly, eugenics, as I said before, does not involve forced breeding of people. Okay. I got into this in the other recording, but I'll get into this now. I forgot to say it in this recording. There's two types of eugenics: positive eugenics and negative eugenics. Positive eugenics is when you reward certain traits, genetic traits in people that you believe are desirable. Negative eugenics is when you punish bad traits. You can be in favor of eugenics and still be against government coercion for the purpose of eugenics if you do positive eugenics. If you simply have the government pay people to... If you simply have the government pay a high IQ male to donate his sperm, for example, and then pay a high IQ female to inject the high IQ male sperm into her, then yeah, you can have eugenics without coercion. And the argument that Stefan Molyneux made is that if you have two parents that are not really interested in raising a kid, then the kid's not going to turn out well. But the problem is that this is, of course, based on a straw man. We're not forcing people to breed together. We're simply advocating for there to be incentives for high IQ people or people with desirable genetics to breed more. We're not necessarily coercing anyone to breed. Stefan Molyneux's logic of the kids aren't going to turn out well in a family that was forced to be together by the state. That logic only works if you have a eugenics program that forces two people to breed against their will, which, again, no one in the history of eugenics has ever advocated for. Okay, so that debunks Stefan Molyneux's latest argument against eugenics. Okay, so the last thing that I will say. You know, Francis Galton, he wrote in his book that the first nation to embrace eugenics will conquer the world, or inherit the earth, as he said. China is going full speed ahead with eugenics. If you watch Jared Taylor's video on this, the Chinese are not skittish in the way we are. So if you don't believe in eugenics, I have just one piece of advice for you, bro. You better learn to speak Chinese. Thanks for watching. If you liked this re-recording of my original video, or agreed with anything that I said, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. This is Wolf, signing out.